Welcome to episode 7 of Seagull Eagle, a celebration of everything Brighton and Crystal Palace.
The show that brings two rival fans into the studio to talk about their differences like adults, but usually ends in petty digs, wild overreactions, and at least one sarcastic apology. So, what happened this week?
Brighton turned what should have been Liverpool's trophy parade into a full-blown seaside ambush. The Reds wanted a celebration, they got slapped with a reminder: never underestimate a seagull.
Meanwhile, Palace returned to Selhurst Park like they'd just stumbled in from an after-party. They chased the Wolves away in convincing fashion, with most of the first team on the bench.
So here we are again, two fan bases on the edge of optimism, looking forward to not just one, but possibly 2 European tours.
Thanks for tuning in. Follow us on socials for rants, reactions, and the kind of cautious hope that only Palace and Brighton fans truly understand.
So let's get into it before Andy mentions the FA Cup again.
Oh, Neil, have you had a good week?
I've had a pretty good week ever since about, Sunday morning probably, I would say. Before that, it wasn't great. But now I'm feeling pretty good, mate. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a brilliant week. It's been a really, really good week. I feel like I haven't really kind of come off of the wave since last weekend, and obviously we've both had a busy week, right? We've both come out of weekend games, and then you've had Monday night, I've had last night, and we're back in the studio again to talk about it all. So I'm excited actually, because I think we got 2 wins.
Wow. I mean, a little bit unexpected in some respects.
I didn't expect yours, I'll be honest with you. And that's not me being horrible, but I didn't.
I didn't expect yours. After the shenanigans from last Saturday, I wasn't expecting yours, mate.
I didn't expect mine. I'll talk about that later. But a pleasant surprise for our podcast. We're both smiling. So how about we start and talk about the Brighton-Liverpool game? Neil, I'm going to let you tell us what the score was. Go on.
Brighton and Hove Albion 3, Liverpool 2.
Can't believe it.
Has-beens, honestly. They're just like washed up already.
Can't believe it.
It was a really fun game to watch. I think it was probably more of a fun game for a neutral in some respects. Brighton go into this game knowing that we needed to get something from it. We can talk about the possibility of Europe a little later when we get into the other Premier League results and things.
He's clutching on straws.
I tell you, I am clutching on for dear life.
Mate, honestly. I'll tell you, just before you get into it, actually, Neil, I watched this game on telly, and it was... I don't often watch Brighton games for obvious reasons, right? So I watched it because I wanted to be able to give an opinion on it.
You thinking of converting?
No, but what I will say, because you've been very honourable with your compliments of Crystal Palace's recent success. I feel you were forced into it in some instances, but some of them were sincere. And actually, I believe that you deserved to win that game. I thought that you actually played very well, and it was actually, as you said, a very exciting game.
Yeah.
So I think, fair play, credit where credit's due, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing what your opinion was on the game. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think it was a really good performance. That performance has been coming for the last few weeks, and I'm just really pleased it's come out in time before the end of the season. I think it gives everyone, for the last home game, I think it gives everyone a bit of a buzz to go, oh, we've got something to look forward to, you know?
It's always good to win the last one at home, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
It just gives everybody a little bit of a lift. Anyway, look, lineups. Won't go too much into it.
Yep. But
2 changes. So Gruder comes in for O'Reilly, having scored in Wolves in the last sort of 5 minutes of the game there. Adingra comes in for Lamptey. Obviously, Lamptey pulled up with that little injury at Wolves as well anyway. So I was expecting some couple of changes, and that was the ones. O'Reilly, no problems with O'Reilly. He was just literally dropped, I think. I was looking forward to seeing what Gruder would be like, especially as he would be therefore playing in the number 10 position. Actually give him sort of a good length of time to get into the game and see how he gets on. We were all expecting João Pedro to be back in some way, whether it be on the bench or starting after his suspension was finished. But he's completely missing, apparently for personal reasons.
Oh, Completely missing. So do we know, I mean, I don't want to delve in here where we're not, don't want to get people's private lives out here, but do we know what that was about?
Yeah, we do. Well, I say we do. For all intents and purposes, it's been reported subsequently that he and Van Heck got into a bit of an altercation in the training this week. That's what's being reported.
This is what I wanted to get into, Neil.
So,
tell me more.
If you think back to his red card, the reason why he got suspended, it was a petulant response in the Brentford game. And as Brighton fans, we'd seen him being pretty petulant in a few games before that, showing a lot of frustration. And he just looked a little bit like he checked out a little bit as well, which led to a lot of people talking about the concept that maybe he's off this summer, that maybe he had some conversations, let's say, with other people outside of Brighton and he was deciding his future. I don't know, just didn't really feel he was quite part of it the last 5 or 6 games he was playing. Then you hear this news that, he's available and then he's not in the lineup. And then you hear that the reason he's not in the lineup is probably because he's had some sort of fight with Van Heck in training. You're starting to put bits together and you're starting to think that, he probably is off. At the point when the game came up, we were all scratching our heads. But subsequently now it's, okay, we've probably seen him for the last time, which is a shame, but we can talk about that next week.
So the question that I've got then, that I'm sure that everyone wants to know is, who do you think won the fight?
Oh, I don't think there's a question, personally. I wouldn't want to mess with Van Heck.
I agree.
I mean, Pedro probably has his moments, but no, I wouldn't want to mess with Van Heck. He's fast becoming the fans' favourite. Obviously, he got Player of the Year this season, and he's going to be our leader. You can just feel it. So, I think if it had to come down to a choice, most fans that I've spoken to so far are, fair enough, Pedro, thanks very much, but... Laters. Yeah. So, kick-up comes around, and the Liverpool team, there were a few changes. Van Dijk on the bench, Trent, McAllister also missing. But otherwise, generally, with the squad that they've got, it was a pretty full-strength side. Still had Salah, still had Gakpo, Szoboszlai. There were some big players in that team. We had seen reports, obviously, of them in the week going to Dubai as well. So I was sort of kind of hoping there'd be a few less of the first teamers in the starting lineup. But
I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of Mo Salah on a lilo in the sea this week. So yeah,
I know.
I mean, they've got to have done you some favours there. But as I said it before you started, Neil, I believe you played well, regardless of how Liverpool turned up.
Oh yeah. So, there was more on it for us, obviously.
Of course.
For us, we know we have to keep winning. That's just the only thing we can do, really. That's all we can worry about. Just keep winning. So the game starts, and Liverpool firing pretty well, to be fair. First sort of 10, 15 minutes, they looked pretty much their normal self. And you sort of start to think, all the hopes that we had beforehand of hungover players or a few missing didn't really materialise. So we've got to really be up for this and we've got to go for it. The crowd got into it. We played pretty well. I think my biggest concern before the game started was Simon Adingra. I've talked to you before about him, and he's great going forward, but defensively wise, he's a worry. He always is. With the amount of work that we expect our wingers to have, he's a concern. And my concerns were there literally as we got to the 9 minutes. First goal for Liverpool. It was a good run from Conor Bradley, who crossed it eventually for Harvey Elliott to tap it in. But Adingra gets caught ball watching essentially. And that lack of defensive work is a problem again. It's suddenly he's lost his runner. Estepinian's got 2 to mark, can't do it. And crosses over for Harvey Elliott, 1-0, and we're all a bit like, not again. And it's that same problem again of just individual players just switching off slightly outside of that normal function that we've been pretty good over the last few weeks. But yeah, it was a very frustrating start.
And at this point, Neil, I was sat at home watching it, thinking to myself, there's a possibility that Palace can finish above Brighton here if they keep going, get your goal difference down a little bit, and we win our next 2 games. You never know. How wrong was I?
Well, you're right, yeah. Brighton then start to come into the game a bit more. They created quite a few chances in that first half. Not loads, but they were playing well. They were moving the ball around. You could see they suddenly got a little bit more confidence, ironically, from going a goal down. And I suppose it's an element of, we've got nothing to lose now. We've got to go for it a bit more. And yeah, we got back into the game. It was about 30 minutes, 32 minutes, I think it was. It was a really well worked goal. I'm sure you saw it. We got a ball into Welbeck. It was almost De Zerbi-like in the way that we played it, actually, because it was the quick pass into Welbeck as that number 9 who just flicks it straight back off to Gruder, and he again passes it first time, a beautiful lob over that Liverpool back line. And, the on-rushing Ayari is there, takes it down, passes it past the leg of Alisson. And I was just really, really impressed by the movement totally. And we've had moments throughout the season, but to this game in particular, we started to see a lot more of that slick passing and energy all coming together at once. Ayari's been making that run all season. Every time he plays, he makes these darting runs through the back. And I honestly can probably count out of the whole season 2-3 times that someone has tried to make that pass. Thankfully, this time, Gruder actually did it. And Ayari's there, puts the ball away for his second goal. And I just was so pleased that it was those two players in particular, especially with Gruder, as I said, making sort of his real first proper start at that number 10 place as well. It was really good to see anyway. And the first time touches, it just finished it off well. Really good team goal. Happy days. We're back in it. And suddenly, let's stay positive and see what happens next.
And the place went mad, didn't it? I mean,
it was a great goal.
Yeah.
It was a great goal. And it just gives you such confidence when you see that happen. And to be honest, I 1-1, fair result for the first half in my head, I'm thinking. We get to probably the last 45 seconds of the half. We give away a silly free kick, edge of the box. And again, people switching off from their jobs. Adingra, again, is the last man, as it were, the most widest player of our defensive line. Liverpool take it short, pass it to Szoboszlai. Adingra doesn't run. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know whether to close him down or stay in the line or whatever. And those are the sorts of things you should know. You should have some sort of plan for that. He is the closest player to Szoboszlai, and he still doesn't run across. Szoboszlai clearly tries to kick it as a cross, but it flies in over Verbruggen. I mean, it was hilarious in some respects. If there was no way he was going to score from there, he was trying to cross it. But yeah, when that goes in, around me, it's just like, what? How lucky can you be?
Did I seem to recall the three Liverpool players all stood there in a nice line, and Salah stood next to him, and then they all kind of stood there as if that wasn't meant to happen.
No, you could see on his face he's so embarrassed. He's not celebrating overly because he knows he's completely miskicked it.
And Salah's face was a picture.
It was, wasn't it? And it's just one of those things when you look at it and you go, we really need these 3 points. You've won the title. You've got nothing on this game, and you do that. And it just really hits hard, And the problem was as well, the final the halftime whistle goes 20 seconds later. We kick off, and we're too late. That just leaves such a bitter taste, going in a game that actually we were relatively even all the way through that first half. Anyway, look, the point being that I don't think that was a fair first half scoreline. I think a draw would have been fair enough at that point. So we go in, and I'm grabbing another cup of tea because I like the strong stuff, and I'm talking to my mates on my WhatsApp chat and other things, and everyone's saying the same thing. Played well. We shouldn't be down. We're going to stay positive. We've got this if we really push hard the next half. So we go back out. No changes second half. And there's the really good thing is there's a real increase in work rate and intensity at that moment. You could see the players had come out and they really went for it, and they wanted to play quicker. Even quicker than they had in the first half. They really applied the pressure as well to Liverpool's back 4-5, trying to really sort of push mistakes into them.
I noticed that, Neil.
Did you?
I genuinely did notice that. But bearing in mind, that's kind of, it's not the same style of play, but it's the same tactic that Palace have been using recently with that kind of the pressing, forcing the mistake. And you just saw the passion and the will to push on from the Brighton players, which was apparent. And when you start seeing that, something's going to happen because they can't sustain that. Liverpool can't sustain it for that long until a mistake's being made.
Well, no. I mean, to be fair to Liverpool, obviously they're not champions by luck. You know, a lot of the times they were able to beat the press and get a few opportunities to rush into our box. Absolutely. But the point was, we didn't let that discourage us. We kept going because we know we've got nothing to lose here. Liverpool haven't either in some respects, if you know what I mean. But
just a bit of dignity.
Exactly. From our point of view, it was, we've just got to keep going, got to keep doing it. And they really worked hard as a unit. They worked really, really hard. And it made for a sort of a very end-to-end, almost basketball-style second half. You know, entertaining for the neutral, as I said, but for us Albion fans, knowing we still need something out of the game, it was a little bit more tense. So the clock ticks on. We get to 65 minutes. And Fabian Hürzeler makes his first and probably most important tactical change.
Agreed.
So we know that Mitoma has a reoccurring heel injury currently at the moment. So they're managing his minutes. If you remember at Wolves, he only got the last, I think, 10 minutes or so. Yeah. But thankfully we didn't really need him. However, here against Liverpool, you know, we need something different.
You needed him on the pitch.
Absolutely. And thankfully we got a perfect version of Mitoma for that last 25 minutes. Being able to bring on someone of that level of quality completely changes Brighton's aspect of attack. And you saw it straight away from the moment he came on. It's just the ability to be able to carry the ball, the ability and the confidence of all the players around him. You know what it's like when you get a really good player on the pitch, as I'm sure you know as well with people like Eza, you suddenly see the rest of the team look to him.
Well, funny enough, Neil, without gate crashing on yours, we had the same situation in our game, which I'll talk about later, where it's only at this time of the season where you end up with potentially some of your first teamers on the bench taking over from some of the people that have already had a shot for the first half. And you get to then really realise the real quality of these players. And I noticed it immediately when Mitoma came on the pitch. It was like it was an instant impact and a level up on the play.
It really was. It really was. And we just looked so much better. We kept the ball better. We kept the pressure on better as well. And we just piled on more and more. So it only took 4 minutes. He came on the pitch and 4 minutes later, Mitoma scores. As we know, Welbeck, well, it was Mitoma that put the ball through to Welbeck in the first place. And the great thing is, Mitoma carried on. He followed the ball. He went in with it. He piled into that box. Welbeck shoots. The keeper gets a touch to it. It comes back out. Mitoma somehow, through his yoga training, gets a hold of with his left foot, puts it in the back of the net in some sort of contortion. Fantastic finish. Just to be able to get a foot on the end of that was just brilliant. And suddenly it's 2-2.
Yeah.
And we are right up for it at that point. Everybody is, we can do this. We've got to do this. So let's just keep going.
At that point, mate, I was like, it's only going to end in one way now. Brighton have got this. That's how I felt being the neutral.
I agree. I think we felt that. But you obviously, you know what Liverpool quality is.
Of course.
You've got Mohamed Salah up the other end.
Yeah.
And you know that one mistake or one golden opportunity, you're going to be out of this again because it's Liverpool at the end of the day. So we do turn up the heat, and we do just start to really pepper the Liverpool box with attacks, one after the other, one of which could have been our goal of the season. I don't know if you saw this, but we started at the back. We worked it all the way through, ended up with Gruder in the box doing a back heel to Welbeck, and I was on my feet thinking, oh my God, this is the goal of the season. Only for Welbeck to lose his balance slightly and kick it into the keeper. It was I was gutted because that could have been such a perfect goal.
Mate, the build-up on it was phenomenal, and I was sat there thinking to myself, how are this team not going to make it into Europe? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like your build-up, it was perfect, is what it was, and it should have been. You're right, it should have been the goal of the season, but wasn't to be. Just like your European dreams.
Oh, he's gone early. Don't get me wrong, Liverpool had their chances too. You know, it was an open game.
Yeah.
By all accounts, it was too open for Fabian Hürzeler. He made a comment afterwards saying he actually didn't want it in that way. But, you know, it was what it was. Salah had two really good chances, one saved by Verbruggen, but the other one, I mean, did you see it? The miss?
I just don't know how it didn't go in. I've got no idea.
Well, I think that is the bit of luck that you sometimes need. We got lucky. Salah, He'd had a long week on the beach, and finally the ball came to him, and for whatever reason, he didn't put it in the back of the net, even though I think the XG on that one chance was 0.84, which is basically the same as a penalty almost. So, yeah, it was pretty much an open goal missed by Salah is the luck that you need in these situations. It was
the rubber rings, the armbands and the sunglasses that got in his way.
You never know. So we move on. We're still peppering their goal. We're still putting the pressure on, but nothing's really changing too much. We make a couple of other changes in midfield at 73 minutes where O'Reilly, who's been dropped, comes back onto the pitch for the then absolutely knackered but excellent Gruder. Gomez comes on for a Yari just to freshen those legs up. And we fast forward to 83 minutes and the second great tactical change from Fabian Hürzeler. Don't get me wrong, at this moment, I don't think this is a great tactical change.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Isn't it? At the moment, I'm going, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
So Welbeck comes off, obviously with no Pedro on the bench. We're going, well, okay, so who's going to play striker? Is Homer going to play up there? How are they going to do this? And he decides to play the boy of many talents, Jack Hinshelwood, as what can only be described as a false nine, I suppose. Him and O'Reilly sort of take it in turns to put pressure on the back four, make darting runs in behind, but then tuck into midfield when they need to. So it was very much a false nine, I would argue. And alongside Jack Hinshelwood, coming on for the now very knackered Yankuba Minter, was someone that we definitely weren't expecting to see in such an important and obviously close game. Little Harry Howell. I say little, he's not actually that little. I'm just referring to his age more than his height or stature. The cousin of Jack Hinshelwood, who at just, I think he was 17 years and about 30 days, came on to become Brighton's youngest Premier League player, beating Evan Ferguson just.
He's from Worthing, right?
Oh, he's local.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as Jack Hinshelwood is as well, the Hinshelwood family go back quite a way in the Brighton heritage and Crystal Palace heritage, by the way, as well. He is the cousin of Jack, and he's been doing incredibly well this year in the under-23s. He's mostly a sort of a right forward, right winger, coming in on his left type player. He's played up front. He scored lots of goals for the under-23s. But if I'm honest, I wasn't really... he's been on the bench the last 2 or 3 times. I thought he was just getting a little bit of a, this is what the first team could be like for you. Sort of
a day out.
Exactly. But he actually got on the pitch. So they put him over on the right side and they put Jack, as we said, as that sort of false nine. And it only took 78 seconds for that change of Jack Hinshelwood to make amends for all of my thoughts of such a bad tactical decision. He finds himself at the back of the penalty box, tapping in that low cross from O'Reilly. We all go up, going mental. There's like 5 minutes left and we're jumping about for a good sort of 30 seconds before we suddenly realise that the rest of the crowd is starting to go quiet and everyone isn't jumping around on the pitch as much as I was expecting them to. So the dreaded flag goes up for offside. But if you remember, Andy, where I sit, I get a really good view of the old TV cameras and the VAR pictures. So I am squinting, trying to work out what the hell has just happened, who's offside. You, obviously watching it from home, could see it very clearly. What did you think before you saw any lines or anything? I
didn't think it was offside.
You didn't straight away?
No, I didn't watching it. And I wasn't jumping up and down when he scored. That's my view.
For some reason, that doesn't surprise me. The good news is it only took about 90 seconds, actually, which is great when we talked about this whole semi-automated offside. It didn't take too long. It felt like a long time, but afterwards I came back and I actually timed it and it was less than 2 minutes to come back to a result. So we get to celebrate again, jump up and down. And thankfully, when that ref points to the centre circle, the really nice thing is that Hinshelwood decides to have another celebration because his first one was cut short. So I quite like that.
He goes for it again,
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Listen, it was fantastic. Really good comeback. To be 1-0 down, bring it back. To be 2-1 down, bring it back, and then get the winner. It just really showed a level of passion and hard work from a squad that had been getting better over the last few weeks. And I was so impressed. The European dream, albeit still in the distance, it is still in sight.
with binoculars. And to be fair, Neil, right, I know you're clinging on to that, and it could, by the fact that mathematically it's possible, it could happen. So you've got to cling on to it, because I would be too.
Oh, that's all I've got, mate. That's all
you're
I've got.
absolutely right.
That's all I've got.
But I tell you what, you have got.
Go on.
You called this. You said that you would win this game.
Oh, let me just soak that in.
You did. No, mate, I've got to give you credit. Just like I said we'd win the FA Cup. Did I mention that? You said that you would win this game, and I laughed at you. You said they'd be on the beach and that Brighton would want it more because you'd have something to play for. You called it, mate, and you were right. And you did. You wanted it more. And fair play to you. Fair play to you. And I think, look, Liverpool have become the first Premier League team to fail to win any of their next 3 matches after winning the title, which is it's a bit of a big deal, that, right? We all say you're on the beach, but no one else has lost 3 games after winning the title.
No, I agree. I think they've enjoyed their moment. The other thing, though, is that we deserved those 3 points against a Liverpool team that weren't. It wasn't like, as I said to you at the beginning, the lineups weren't that far away from what they would be their normal starting lineups. The Seagulls had 12 shots on target. Do you know that's the most Liverpool have ever faced in the Premier League in 90 minutes? They've never faced 12 shots on target. And, shall I give you another stat?
Love to hear it.
This is the first time that Liverpool have lost a game after leading at half-time since 2016.
That's a hell of a stat.
156 games they've gone. Leading at half-time, they've never lost. Brighton did that to them.
Wow.
Fantastic, isn't it?
That is really, really interesting. I'll tell you what, Salah will be kicking himself because the absolute sitter, if he'd have scored that, then he would have equalled the Premier League era record of 47 in a single season. So
he has got one more chance though, Andy.
Well, I was just about to say that.
I've got a funny feeling he might.
He ain't getting one next week, so
let's
see.
Just before we finish, I just want to pick up on just 2 things, because I've talked about UEFA a lot the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And he, again, absolutely excellent. And he, again, showed his real strength and his physicality that really was needed against a side like Liverpool. He worked so hard. And I actually didn't realise until watching him against Liverpool how quick he is as well. You look at him and you think he's a big guy, maybe he won't turn as quick or he won't run as quick. When he gets going, he is so quick. So, he was really good again. And then last but not least, I just need to take a moment to talk about Brajan Gruda. Man of the match from my point of view, for many people's point of view. He looks a completely different player now that he's had a little bit of a run. He scored that goal last week. You could just see the weight lift off him last week at Wolves. And his first half impact was fantastic.
He was good.
He was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And just as a sort of final stat for him, so in the last 4 games, our winning streak that we've had one draw, 3 wins in those 4 games. He's played 126 minutes. It's not loads, but a game and a half, game and a bit. 126 minutes, he's got 3 assists and 1 goal. It's pretty good, isn't it?
That's not bad.
So he is starting to come good, and I'm really pleased for him. He's still only 20. He's got plenty of growing to come. He's going to leave Brighton at the end of the summer, go on his summer holidays. Well, I say summer holidays. He's actually going, I think, to the German under-21s tournament.
Right.
So he's going to represent his country there. He'll have a huge amount of confidence, and I'm really looking forward to him next season. So
shame he didn't get going earlier, wasn't it? I mean, it's a bit.
Well, he did. Yeah. He had moments, and that's the thing. And I think what's happened now is we've got so many injuries again in that area. Suddenly now we need him. And the good thing for him is he's starting to show his impact. And don't forget, when we did bring him on earlier in the season, we put him on the right wing. Yeah. And I think that's just not quite what he understands. The way he plays, you can see he needs that sort of middle of the pitch to be able to twist and turn and go in different places. But anyway, the point is showing his real skill and quality, and I'm really pleased for him. It was a really good 3 points. It leaves us in a really good position to at least get 8th position, no matter what happens in that sense, and we can talk about that later. And last but not least, more importantly than any of it, it was my last home game with my dad at the football. He's not going to renew his season ticket anymore. So this was his last one. he's getting on a bit and he can't really manage the steps anymore and all these sorts of things. But it was the last game for us to be able to go watch a really good game of football, get a really good result and send him off in style. So it matters, Andy, as you were talking about with the FA Cup final, family and things like that, having those moments together, it really matters. So it was a lovely way to finish. The sun was shining. We scored 3 goals. We beat the champions. And whatever happens next is a bonus.
Oh, well, look, what a wonderful day out for you, mate, and also your dad. And you, as I said to you, you deserve them 3 points. And I can only now take the misery out of the fact that you are now going to finish above us. Congratulations, by the way.
Mind the gap.
And thank you for softening up Liverpool for us next week. Do I take the positives, right?
Yeah, we'll see, mate. We'll see. So tell us about the Palace Wolves game. After the Lord's Mayor show, or was it something a bit special?
Well, 72 hours after lifting the FA Cup, the Palace players looked like they'd swapped ice baths for espresso shots and sheer adrenaline, Neil. A few sore heads from the after party, naturally, but it didn't actually show. I travelled up to London from the South Coast last night, it was actually, and I was expecting not much at all, to be honest, I'm sure. With you. Bearing in mind that I'd viewed various key members of our squad and publicly watched them very intoxicated, wishing they'd probably never posted some of this stuff online. Memorably, Henderson's chants, which was being chanted around the stadium, something about finishing 12th, it don't matter. We won the FA Cup, which I thought you'd enjoy, which the whole stadium embodied and got involved in. But there was no chance in hell that I thought this was going to be an amazing game and an end-to-end thrilling thing that it was, and such a celebration. I figured it was going to be one of the ones where endure the game and look forward to the cup coming out at the end.
I was going to say that it's more about, I mean, I can only dream about it, but it's more about that concept, isn't it? Of going to your first home game after something so amazing. There's no way you're going to miss out on that moment to go back there and talk to everyone and see it and just be in the moment. So I really wasn't. I was thinking it was going to be like a drab 0-0 or a 1-0 to Wolves or something, but it turned out to be a bit of a goal fest.
Oh, and you know, it just shows you the importance of what happened, because it's the first time I've ever been to Palace and I couldn't buy a programme. They were all sold out.
Oh, really?
Not even joking. They did a special FA Cup winners programme. We got there hour and a little bit before kickoff, and I went to 4 different places to try and buy a programme, and no luck.
I mean, that just shows the sign, doesn't it? I mean, it's such a momentous moment, and people want to keep hold of it because it'll never happen again. So.
Okay, Neil, we'll move on to the game. So a game in reality, not much to play for in reality, right? But Glasner, in moments in that game, felt more animated, more angry with mistakes than I saw him at Wembley. This guy wanted to win this game, right? There was no jokes, like he was going for it. It was a 6-goal thriller. We got a new Premier League record points total. Right, that's been set now. We've broken our best ever Premier League season in terms of points.
Wow, so how many points is that? What are you on?
52 nil.
Oh, nice.
52. Okay. And, you know, in previous seasons, 52's been a reasonable haul and would have actually put you above the 12th place mark. But because the 3 bottom teams have been so bad, I think there's been a bit of a bounty of points that have been put up at the top end of the table recently. So anyway, 52, I'm really pleased with that. And I'll be surprised if we're still in 12th by the end of the season. But let's wait and see on that one. Anyway, so yes, a new Premier League record points total, an epic farewell party for an absolute Palace legend, which we'll talk about later. Oh, and Neil, did I mention that we saw the FA Cup as well?
You might have mentioned that already.
Yeah. So always a positive to finish a game with all of the players out on the pitch, as you would normally do at the end of season. However, this time they were walking around with a nice shiny cup, which was lovely. So look, the atmosphere, it felt like someone had accidentally booked a rave at a Premier League ground and Wolves were the confused security staff. It was so funny because all the Wolves fans were giving it the large. So much so before, like, as we were walking into the ground, there was some really, I don't know, they were just very brash and kind of up for it. And it was like, I think you might have misjudged tonight, mate. Even if you win, no one cares.
No.
Like, do you know what I mean? This is our party. Come and join in if you want.
Yeah.
But don't give us the large, mate, because you've got nothing. What you got? So, yeah, it was an interesting approach in some of them. But a lot of them were actually just really, really happy to be part of it, because that's what it was. There was no chanting against the Wolves fans last night. It was all very much celebration time, and come and play here and just come and join the party. We're happy, right? It was just a lovely, lovely atmosphere. Glad all over, and we're all going on a European tour. We're belted out at such gusto, even the turnstiles were vibrating. Wolves fans turned up expecting a football match, and it ended up feeling like they were extras in Palace's celebration montage. I had to double check the fixture list at one point to make sure this wasn't a testimonial, because it felt like it. It genuinely did. It was such an atmosphere, and I think I'll explain as we go along, but even when we went 1-0 down, we just cheered louder. It didn't, I've never known a situation such as this. It was just like, I'll explain it in a minute. Anyway, lineups, as expected, lots of changes from the starting lineup at Wembley.
Sure.
Obviously, Gay and Wharton are out of hospital now after all of that, and they were both there.
Okay.
And both kind of upper. Gay had some nice thick black glasses on to hide his probably incredibly swollen eye still. And Wharton seemed to be remembering what had happened now, and he was all right. The other interesting thing was that Elise was there last night and was pictured in the changing rooms and, celebrating with all of his friends, including Eze and so on. Anyway, Glasner saw this game as an opportunity to give some of the other players a chance, which I also hoped happened, because Glasner likes to keep that starting lineup pretty rigid. So therefore, we got Chilwell and Esse got their first Premier League starts of the season, which was lovely to see. And Esse, who's the kid we signed from Millwall, we all knew he's got a bright future. But when you're playing backup to some of the people that we've got already, you've got to wait till someone gets injured or for the last couple of games of the season to really get your opportunity. He's got a really, really big future with us.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of see who he's been bought to replace in some respects, can't you? I mean, the name is pretty close as well.
Well, it is, but I mean, I actually think he's got more likenesses to Zaha.
Oh, do you?
Than Esse. Yeah.
Zaha's not there though, Andy.
No, he's not. No.
In spirit, maybe, but he's not there.
He is there still in spirit.
You need to let it go.
I know. So Lerma, Hughes and Nketiah also started. I've got a confession to make, Neil, because prior to this podcast, and I actually did discuss this with you, I was going to do a piece on Eddie Nketiah. And
you were thinking of doing your swooping statement on him, weren't you?
Yeah, we were discussing what to do tonight, and there was going to be a possibility of a swooping statement basically stating how Eddie Nketiah hasn't had a very good season, which isn't controversial because, to be brutally honest, he hasn't, because he's been playing back up to Mateta. Hasn't really had a chance, bless him. But when he has, he's tended to get himself sent off, stray into offside, losing the ball, and not particularly fitting in with the style of play that's been very suited to Mateta. So when he comes on, we carry on playing as if Mateta was on the pitch.
That's a really good point, actually.
And he doesn't play like that, right? So he's kind of a striker prior to Glasner, really. So when he got given his start today, I didn't feel particularly confident about that, because I figured there'd be a lot of falling over, a lot of... what I don't like about Nketiah is how he literally gets the slightest of touches from another player and he will go flying.
Right.
And I just want him to stay on his feet a little bit more. You can't win a penalty on every time you lose the ball. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, he proved me wrong again. That's twice I'm saying it today. He proved me wrong, and hell did he prove me wrong. Joel Ward was handed his 364th Palace appearance as captain. Obviously Gay wasn't playing, so they gave him the captain's armband for his last and final match at Selhurst Park after 13 years since his debut.
Wow.
So he's been at the club when they got promoted. He was part of the championship team, and he's been through quite a few managers in that time, quite a few ups and downs. And it was really interesting, actually, because Steve Parish came out on the pitch afterwards and did his end of season speech. And he said that he signed Joel Ward. He remembers the conversation he had with him in the little porter cabin at the old training ground when they were trying to get him to sign the contract, and he was signing from Portsmouth. And they said that there was a couple of conditions, one of which was that they can't sell Zaha, which was really, really interesting. So he wanted a promise that they would keep Zaha, and that Joel Ward would basically sign, along with a few other things, which I thought was just really interesting, because you don't foresee them kind of conversations happening, do you? Behind closed doors. But the chairman had to promise that he wouldn't sell Zaha in that transfer window, and Joel Ward came in over the line.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that he was thinking more about the challenge of playing football than the money he was getting paid.
Exactly. And that is this guy down to a T. He is a wonderful human being and has given us 13 years worth of hard work and dedication to the club. And what he does off the pitch, honestly, is probably been more impactful than he's done on the pitch. And that's not a disrespect to him on the pitch. This guy's, the way that he kind of is a leader in that dressing room, all the work he does outside of the club in terms of all the charity work and you know, like example, anytime there's a new player that comes into the club, Joel Ward is seen down the local David Lloyd with him outside of training, introducing him to his friends, and he's the one that takes everybody under his wing.
Sure.
So I think my prediction would be that Joel will continue to be at the club in some guise in the future. I think he's going to be the new Mark Bright, really, and I think they will find a place for him.
So he's right, okay. So is he actually announced that he's retiring from football completely?
Yeah. He announced it about a month ago,
right?
And he's had a hell of a week, which I'll talk about that later on. But yeah, anyway, it was his final match, and then also I haven't even got through the lineup yet.
I was just about to say, a game hasn't even kicked off yet.
But there's so much to talk about. Glasner also rests Mateta Eze and presumably his own vocal cords for the game, but that didn't actually happen. So 6 changes in total, but no one told the replacements that this wasn't going to be a full-on game. The game kicks off. Palace started strong, actually, with early chances from Chilwell and Sarr. And we thought, do you know what? We're in this now. This is actually all right. This is looking okay. A lot more of an open game than the Man City one at Wembley, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was very much end-to-end, loads of battles in midfield, lots on the wings. The crowd was singing verse 47, I think, of Toto's Africa, the Dean Henderson edition, when Wolves decided to spoil the party.
Yeah, first goal to Wolves.
It was. And Nketiah, we thought, cleared it off the line, is what I thought I saw.
Sure, yeah.
Again, no controversy from my side. The referee's watch vibrated to say, nah, goal.
Yeah.
And we all went, okay, no worries. And this is the thing that I mentioned earlier, right? No Palace heads dropped. They just strolled back to the centre circle really calmly. The crowd upped the volume and we went again. There was no heads down or anything. And the atmosphere just went up a whole nother level. 3 minutes later, Esse channels his inner Wilf and literally dances through 2 defenders and tees up Nketiah. Bang, 1-1.
Good finish as well.
Oh, mate. It was, I think, Esse made something out of completely nothing.
Lovely little run, wasn't it?
Oh, it was beautiful. And it's a bit like you were talking about the Brighton one earlier, where you're like, if this goes in, this is going to be one of them wonderful goals. You're like, keep going, go. And it was clinical, composed, and completely confused us all because we just weren't expecting it. And Nketiah did what he does best and what we saw him do at Arsenal on numerous occasions. He just ain't done it at Palace much since he's joined. So I'm like, and I think I messaged you at that time and went, cancel the Nketiah bit. He's back.
Changed my mind.
And then 5 minutes later, after that, Sarr squares it and Nketiah pokes it in again. So now we've gone from being 1-0 down to 2-1 up. It's carnival mode, right? Nketiah, 1 Premier League goal all season, and now 2 in 5 minutes.
It was. I was very surprised that you got 2 goals so quickly. I was even more surprised to find out that it was Eddie Nketiah.
Me too. And I'm honestly, I know we can come across as being harsh on, because this is these people's jobs, right? Sure. And I don't ever want to do that, but I really felt for the guy. As Glasner said, right, it's not particularly his fault. He gets, in an average game, he gets 10 minutes on the pitch to prove himself. And in most instances, that game's either won or lost by the time he comes on. And all he's got is loads of long balls to run onto, and he's got to make an immediate impact. He had the opportunity today to start a game and to say to the midfielders, this is where I want the ball, right? As opposed to them continuing to play like Mateta's on the pitch.
So did Palace change their style, or was there just a subtle difference with Nketiah playing up front rather than Mateta?
I think it's difficult because this game was so much more open and probably less counter-attacking style, because we had a bit more of the ball than we normally have at Wolves. The balls coming through to Eddie were a lot more direct. Obviously, we rely on Mateta to hold the ball up, to play it, and then do the 1-2 back to him, or it goes out to Muniz or Mitchell. So I think with Eddie, what I've witnessed him not be particularly good at is dealing with them long balls, the first touch, or even just winning them. Mateta somehow manages to win balls that he shouldn't be winning because he out jumps the defender or muscles them out. Eddie's just not as strong in terms of physically, and ends up like a sack of spuds on the floor most of the time, any time that he's in that situation. So I think there was a lot more direct through balls in the middle, and a lot more on the ground passing, which is Eddie's strength.
Absolutely,
and this is why he's not been scoring the goals, because he hasn't had the service that he would have got in the style that he's used to. So I think, to sum it up, we've either got to change our style of play with him up front, or we've got to he's got to adapt to a different way of playing. I think there's this bit about the fact that if you've got 2 strikers and you can play in 2 separate ways, it's about everybody else understanding that. And what was lovely to see last night was that the team around him did understand that. And I just think Eddie's just got to stay on his feet a bit more. Sure. That's my bit. But there we go.
Have we got to half time yet?
Yeah, we have.
Okay,
we have. Second half, we'll move on. Second half. After 5 minutes of end-to-end play, Chilwell whips in a free kick. And Chilwell had a good game, by the way. It was nice to see him play. And it takes a detour via the Wolves centre-back's skull and ends up in the back of the net. Wolves then pull one back to make it 3-2. Strand Larsen headers one in. Selhurst briefly pauses and then decides to go back to singing Elvis, which was what was going on, and remembers that, do you know what, we're still on a party, it's all good. Sarr is then subbed off to a standing ovation. Everyone who got subbed off was, clapped like a hero as they left that pitch. And then França enters the pitch.
Oh.
And one thing I did say to my son while we were driving down last night was, hope he gets a game today, so we can actually see what we've got going on here. He spent most of the time on the floor. And I was actually really disappointed. Again, look, he's a young kid. He's got a bright future, but he just needs a new pair of studs.
So do you mean, so you mean he was on the floor as in he slipped, or he was diving more?
No, he's really talented on his feet, right?
Yeah, sure.
And he's quick as hell, and he's got some really, really good kind of Brazilian footwork on him, right? Is basically what he's got. But there was so much slipping about on that pitch. I don't know whether they overwatered it or what. I don't know what was going on. But as soon as anyone accelerated, tried to turn, they were on the floor. And I think, França really suffered with that. Sure. I think he needs to have a look at what's going on with his boots. It just didn't quite work for him. I think he has got good things to come. I think, bless him, he would have gone home last night with, and I always feel for these players. Like, you win the FA Cup, you're there celebrating the FA Cup, knowing that you actually haven't done anything, right? And you're like, really thinking, I really wanted to be part of this in a proper way. And I think that's probably where he's at, which is, I hope he's going to have an injury-free run now and have a really good year for us next year, because we have got some wonderful, wonderful kids coming through. So, and with our bigger squad that we need.
Yeah, you'll have plenty of games now, won't you?
Hopefully they'll get a chance. So no disrespect to França. I think he got a run out. His first one in a while. Let's hope next time he can stay on his feet a bit longer. Joel Ward was then subbed off, drops to his knees like a man who's just seen a VAR monitor go his way. Emotional, spine-tingling was actually the truth of this. He was in tears.
I did see the footage of that, and I think it would be very difficult for anyone watching that not to get emotional and understand what that guy is going through when you do your whole career and then you finish for that long as well at one club.
He took so long to get off the pitch, though.
Yeah.
I was in the moment, but then I was like, if I was a Wolves fan now, I'd be getting a little bit annoyed because he did take a long time. But do you know what? Respect to the guy. He did spend half his career trying to leave the pitch, though. He was replaced by Kamada, who looked shocked about how loudly a crowd could sing about a fullback, to be honest with you. As I say, look, it was his final home game, Wardy, 364 appearances, somehow still looks 27. And 43 at the same time. I think every touch that he played, the fans cheered like we'd just won the Euros. He probably blocked more Wolves attacks with emotion than actual tackling. He was superb in the game. He really, really was. So much so that I was actually sat in the stands and a few people around me going, should we renew his contract? Because he's playing really well here.
Yeah.
His wife actually gave birth a few days before the FA Cup final. I think it was on Thursday.
Oh, wow.
They won the FA Cup final on the Saturday, and he's played his final match at Selhurst Park on the Tuesday. What a week for Wardy. Anyway, back to the game. Eze and Mateta come on, and we go up a whole nother level. Bit like you were talking about earlier. You realise the standard of these players that are missing when these elite players enter the pitch, and you realise, oh, hang on a minute. Yes, game on again. Enter Eze, stage left, smooth, glides past a few statues in gold shirts, scuffs it into the bottom corner like a man doing it for fun. And he was doing it for fun. He didn't need to do it. He just wanted to prove how good he was and keep the party going. Wolves then nearly score a third, but Dean Henderson politely reminds them of his reputation that he's got this week with another wonderful save, and it was a cracking save as well. So, final score, full-time scenes. Fans stick it out for the FA Cup trophy reveal after an excruciating wait, very late on a school night, waiting for everyone to come back out after their media duties, with the end-of-season pitch walk, inflatable trophies, chants about European tours, and Joel Ward being carried off like he just cured world hunger. It was a lovely evening, just a lovely night for Palace fans, and everyone was just all walking out there saying wonderful things about everything and everyone. Man of the match, Nketiah, yes. Population of the world, I am eating my words. Praise for Eddie Nketiah. Thank you for having a wonderful game. Finally justified your FIFA rating. And his best performance for the club so far. Crystal Palace have now recorded 22 wins in all competitions this season. A decent haul, one would say. Only winning more games in the top flight since 1990 to 1991, that famous season where they got 28 wins and did wonderful things. Oliver Glasner now taking charge of 50 Premier League games as Crystal Palace manager. He's won 20, drawn 16 and lost 14. So collecting more points, that's 76 since he's been put in charge, than any other manager in the first 50 top flight league games. So in essence, after 50 games, Glasner's at the top of that table. And of course, Eze, 16 Premier League goal involvements this season, 8 goals, 8 assists, is his most now in a single campaign. Bearing in mind he had that barren period where he was shooting from the other end's corner flag and was just getting nowhere. He was getting that desperate. Now he's scored in Palace's last 6 games. He's on an absolute run. He even scored in the game last night, and what was he playing, like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
He's unstoppable at the moment. So yes, the party continues at Palace. And also a nice win for Brighton as well. One of the most positive podcasts potentially we've had in a while.
Oh, yes!
Neil, I think it's only appropriate that, because obviously we've tried to cram 2 podcasts in this week because of the midweek games. I think there's probably only a couple of games that we need to talk about that are reasonably important, actually, that happened elsewhere to... Well, not Palaces, because we've already got our little place in Europe now. But for you, you've got quite a unique situation, haven't you, where you're waiting on some of the other results, which seem to be going your way at the moment.
So far, so good. Yeah.
So I guess the first game that affected you, which was something that I didn't see happening actually, was Brentford 2, Fulham 3. So my prediction has gone completely wayward. Tell us about the game, Neil.
It was what everyone was hoping it was going to be, which was, one, an exciting game. I think both clubs wanted to go at it rather than try and keep it tight, which was really good. Brentford got 2-1 up in the first half, and I was thinking, oh, well, that's that done sort of thing. They're not going to lose that lead. A late comeback from Fulham, though. I think Kearney and Wilson, 2 goals in 2 minutes. 3-2, suddenly all is looking rosy. I'm very happy because, to be honest, I was hoping for a draw, but if Fulham win, that's even better. I don't mind that. It just helps the situation, as we know, with Brentford rising high. 5 or 6 shots on target, each of them. It was a really good game of football. I think the one thing that I took out of it, aside from what it means for Brighton, is that Mbeumo, of course, and Wissa, of course, scored Brentford's goals. Both of them, with 1 game to go, are on 19 goals.
It's mad.
Isn't it? 2 players on 19 goals. I mean, that's classic old school 2 strikers up front sort of thing. And I know they don't play like that, but it's just the fact that they've both got 19 goals.
Do you reckon they'll be able to keep hold of them next year, though?
Mbeumo, I think, is close, if not out of contract, but close to being out of contract in a year's time. So I think he's the one. If anyone's going to go, I reckon it will be him. Yeah. I think they might try and keep hold of Wissa a bit longer. But, I mean, both of them are pretty good. And Mbeumo, I think, is the one that you just look at, though, and just think he's got strength, he's got pace. He's now obviously scoring goals. Great penalty taker.
I remember when he came to Selhurst Park, and I just said to Harry, that he's terrifying. He can just do so much damage, can't he? Yeah. I think the thing that I took from this result was I enjoyed seeing the post-match interview with the Fulham manager.
Marco Silva,
Yeah, and Silva was very much saying that the media as a whole had disrespected Fulham for not even giving them a shot at this game, and so basically saying that the world had underestimated their club and that they deserved a bit more respect than that. And do you know what? Fair play to them. They have pulled out some serious results this year for them.
Oh, absolutely. They've been excellent. They really have. But ultimately, it didn't really do Fulham too much favours. They just had pride and they wanted to win it. They wanted to spoil it for their West London partners, Brentford. So I'm all up for that. I'm happy with that. And it meant a really positive thing from a Brighton perspective, Brentford dropping 3 points. The other game, which is probably worth noticing, is last night's game as we're recording this, which was going on the same time as you were at the Palace. Man City 3, Bournemouth 1.
So they're back to winning ways.
Oh, yes, they are. I mean, they've been okay the last few weeks, obviously, just one hiccup, and we know where that was. But I think the main thing about this game, I was expecting more from Bournemouth, I have to be honest. They were, I don't know, they started off okay. You know what they're like. They're just chaotic, and they're fantastic to watch, but chaotic. And that was maybe the first 5-10 minutes. And after that, Man City did their thing. And they're really starting to look a lot better, Man City. Not going to spend too much on them, but oh my God, what a goal from Marmoush.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was unbelievable.
He's redeemed himself now.
I think that's what a lot of people call a thunderbolt. Do you know what I mean? It's like just absolutely fantastic goal. Another thing, couple of things just to mention in that game. One, Rodri came back. Fantastic just to see a great player finally back on the pitch after I think it was 8 months out altogether. So good for him to be back. And then last but not least, Kevin De Bruyne. It's his last home game. Very similar to Joel Ward in his skill level, obviously. But just a fantastic player for all time. His last home game, subbed him off early. Just a fantastic Premier League player for all time, you know, in that sense.
Of course.
What it does mean is that, again, Bournemouth losing, it means that they are no longer able to get 8th position. What it does mean for Man City, if I go and actually look at the table, it puts them now in 3rd position.
Okay.
And I think probably it's worth talking about what that table looks like now with 1 game to go for every team in the league. We obviously know most of the positions because a lot of things were decided very early. The main 2 things that need to be decided are who's going to get Champions League and who's going to get Europa League and Conference League. Champions League now, we know Arsenal are there. Man City are most probably there. It looks like that they're pretty much done now. Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa and Forest are all vying for that. And all of them, all three of them, Newcastle, Chelsea and Villa are on 66 points. Nottingham Forest on 65 points.
So close.
Unbelievable, coming down to one game. Brighton sitting in 8th. 3 points difference between Brighton and Brentford. So Brighton know to get 8th position, they only need a point against Spurs on Sunday. So what it really means, and the thing that I care mostly about, I'm clinging on to this outside chance of European football and a place in the Conference League. To try and keep it as simple as possible, we are wanting 4 results, 4 things to happen.
Only 4.
Only 4. Shut up. Look, it's all I've got, Andy.
Oh, dear.
All I've got.
Do you know what, though? Things happen, and I respect you for it because I'd be in exactly the same situation as you, mate.
Look, apart from one game, I think all the other things are highly likely. Let me put it that way, okay?
Go on and tell me about them.
4 results we're looking for. So the 3 of results that need to happen on Sunday, on the last day of the season.
Hang on, let me count you in then. First miracle.
This is definitely not a miracle. Spurs need to not win. So in other words, the Seagulls need at least a point at Spurs. That's doable.
Second miracle.
Villa need to get at least a point at Old Trafford.
Okay.
Yeah, see, look at you now. You're looking at me going, okay, well, that's also
We'll talk about this in a minute. All right. Third miracle.
So this is the third one that maybe is a little tougher. Nottingham Forest play Chelsea. Both teams go in for Champions League. So it is all to play for. Brighton need Nottingham Forest to win. You get me? Okay. So if Albion get a point at Spurs or better, if Villa get a point or better at Manchester United, and Nottingham Forest win, that means Chelsea finish in 7th position. And those are the 3 results out of the 4 that we need to happen.
Right.
If all of that happens, lastly, we then have to wait until next Wednesday, the 28th of May.
I know where this is going. Yeah.
And I can't believe I'm saying this, but we have to then support and hope that Chelsea... this is so horrible. I will want Chelsea to win the Conference League final against Real Betis. Because if they win that, they will automatically get a spot in the Europa League, meaning their place in the league that is 7th position and currently a Conference League position, they will not want, they'll give up, which means the next place team in 8th, Brighton and Hove Albion, get the Conference League place.
Okay.
Are you following me?
You know, I'm with you, mate. It's a stretch, Neil.
It is a stretch.
But I think a lot of it, in my head, right, a lot of this is dependent on actually what happens as we're recording tonight. Because obviously you've got the big game tonight in Europe, and I think that whichever way that goes is going to affect some of them 3 or 4 results that you've just mentioned at the weekend in terms of momentum and who's going to want to play and who's already got what they've got. I think that's going to affect things as well, mate.
I completely disagree.
Do you?
I think it has no bearing whatsoever. It doesn't matter who wins or loses, neither team will want to be playing on Sunday. Manchester United or Spurs won't care one way or the other. If Spurs lose, I doubt there'll be a manager in place. So you may get a little bit of a bounce. But
well, no, this is what I'm saying, though. As in, if they get a bounce, all the players will go, oh, we haven't got to play under him anymore. I'll start playing now. And
But most of the players won't play because they will have just played Wednesday. They'll rotate the squad. There's nothing on it for them. If Manchester United win or lose, again, there's nothing's going to change in the league. If they... ultimately what I'm probably hoping for is the Europa League to go all the way to penalties or something. So everyone's completely knackered.
Yeah, there is that.
You've also got to think that Villa, who go to Old Trafford and play Man United, Villa are in the running for a Champions League spot.
Yeah.
They need to win that game to make any... So there's money on that for Villa. They have to go out there and do it. We have to go out there and really need to want to beat Spurs. And realistically, even if Spurs are full strength, we should beat a current Spurs team in how they play. We should. And if we don't, then we don't deserve to qualify anyway, do we?
No, you're absolutely right. That part of the equation should be a given if you think you should get into Europe.
So ultimately, in my head, those last two results are the ones that really come down to. Nottingham Forest beating Chelsea is a tough ask, I think, even though it's at Forest. But again, Nottingham Forest, as like Chelsea, have something in the game. If they want to qualify for Champions League, they must win. So they know what they've got to do.
Well, it's Chelsea winning their game, but then it's also Chelsea winning the cup.
So there you go.
And that's the bit that...
I agree. That's actually probably, I think, one of the toughest ones, because Real Betis are a good side.
Yeah.
They finished 6th in the La Liga, so they're literally... This is very similar to Chelsea in that sense. They've got some really good players. They've had a really good season, and that is going to be the toughest one of all. However, what I would say is it's still a trophy. And Maresca and Chelsea will want to win a trophy in their
Of course
season.
they will. I can only relate this to the equivalent of an ACCA, where you put loads of different results in, and before you end up, before you get to the end of it all, there's a nice big healthy odds at the end of it, which is the reason being for that is because the likelihood of it happening is slim.
Absolutely. There's so many variables, and I know that. All that Albion can do is try and make sure that they do the best they can, finish as high as they can, and put themselves at least... The worst thing to happen on Sunday will be all of those results happen and we don't get the point that we need at Spurs.
Yeah. And do you know what, though? You can go to bed that night knowing that it wasn't meant to happen, because all you can do is win your game.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you win your game and the rest of it happens, then it's meant to happen.
Look, ultimately, if we do get European football, we've got lucky. We haven't deserved European football this season with the way that we've played. And I'm not actually having a go at the Albion side. It's a first season with a new manager, with a new team. I'm surprised we've done as well as we have. We are currently on target for being over 60 points for only the second time in our history.
Yeah.
Like, we have done fantastically to be where we are. And if at the beginning of the season, someone had said to me, you've got this new 30-odd-year-old manager who you've never heard of, we've got 10 new players coming to the squad, and we're going to be fighting for Europe on the very last day of the season, I would have bitten your hand off. We haven't been brilliant, but the last few weeks have shown that these players can really play, that the manager is getting a way of playing that the players are starting to buy into. And we've had some really good form, and more importantly, it's been fun to watch,
Mate, I think I think we'll do this at some point in the next couple of weeks, but when we review the whole season when it gets to the end. But I think you should be pleased with the season that you've had without any sarcasm or anything like that. I think, should you be expecting to get into Europe with all of the other stuff that's happened? Just like Palace shouldn't be expecting to get into Europe. We got into Europe for a different reason, right? We got momentum in a competition, and we had luck on our side in some instances, and all the other stuff that we can all talk about. But actually, I think a top 10 finish for a team like Brighton is absolute success where you're currently at right now.
I agree. And all it does is cements the fact that Tony Bloom and Paul Barber have made the right decision in the manager. Yeah. They're investing in the squad, and we're on our way. And that's all we can do. So look, I'm not going to preview the game for Spurs because there's not much to say. I'm expecting very, very similar lineup. I'm not expecting to see João Pedro anymore. I think that ship has sailed. All we need is the same amount of effort, the same amount of hard work, and the same amount of positive attitude that we had against Liverpool. We'll be absolutely fine, and that's all we can do.
My prediction is if Spurs win tonight, I think you could have a game on your hands because they'll feel like they've got something to prove. And if Spurs lose tonight, and Ange gets sacked, which I don't know whether he will immediately. If he does, then some of the players might decide to turn up on that last game, and that's why I understand your point on it.
No,
I do
totally
think
get
there
your point.
might be a little bit of a counterbalance with your game, but I do believe that you're going to want it more. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Annoyingly, I've got a feeling it might end up in some horrible draw or something like that, which would probably be all right for you.
Points enough for us, and that's the good thing about beating Liverpool. So Palace's last game. Yeah, Palace's last game.
Yeah, so 4 p.m, 25th of May, last day of the season finale. And what better way to end it on a record-breaking year than a trip to the home of the title winners of the Premier League. So we're going to have to go through that whole charade of giving them the guard of honour as they come out. And to be brutally honest, they should be blimmin' doing it for us as well. Let's just swap trophies and all have a lovely party. No, they deserve it. They've had a brilliant season. And obviously coming off of our FA Cup win, it's going to be a nice game. I think, do you know what? There's loads of funny images across the internet at the moment with like images of Palace players and Liverpool players kind of playing with beach balls on the beach and everyone in kind of, putting the suntan cream on and all that. I personally don't think it will be like that. And I'll tell you why, because it's Glasner. And watching Glasner absolutely rip shreds off of some of these players who did a misplaced pass on the pitch the other day, even if it's their first start of the season or whatever it would be, he wants to win every game. And he wants to finish in the top 10 because that to him is progress. It's all very well getting more points, but if we finish in 12th, it's actually not progress for us.
No, I actually agree with you. I think we did our predictions too many weeks ago now. I think a lot of things have changed. And originally I was thinking, no, Liverpool will go out on a high and they'll absolutely beat the hell out of you. Now, having seen what Crystal Palace can do, having seen how Liverpool are playing, I actually think this will be a really fun game to watch.
I agree, mate. And I'm not saying we're going to win it. I don't know whether we will, but I think it'll be close.
It'll be very much like the Brighton game in the sense of two teams going at it, just trying to have a bit of fun, enjoy the game. I think it gets to about 70 minutes. I think that's when you'll see which team really care that much. I think up until then it could be a really even game, but one team will probably just fall away near the end. I don't know which one, but ultimately you don't really care one way or the other. Liverpool don't really care one way or the other. They're just going to enjoy it. And it's definitely going to be a party atmosphere, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And obviously, look, Palace are unbeaten now in their last 7 matches in all competitions, winning 6 out of the 7. We've scored 13 goals in those 7 games and conceded only 5. Liverpool obviously look like they've already checked into their summer holidays. Anfield has been a fortress, though. Liverpool have won 14 of the 18 league games this season, only losing 1 game. Since winning the league, as we said, they haven't won a game, and only getting a point against Arsenal and losing to Chelsea and someone else. Brighton. That was the one. I've put my prediction, Neil. I'm going for it. Do you know what? 2-1 Palace. Let's finish it on a high.
Do you know what my prediction is?
Go on.
Palace will finish 12th. And that's a wrap for episode 7 of Seagull Eagle.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button to make sure you get the alerts when the next episode lands.
We're all over TikTok, Facebook, Instagram and X, so search Seagull Eagle and you'll find us.
If you want to get in touch, email us on seagullEaglepodcast@gmail.com.
We'll be back next week to review the final week of the Premier League season. Will Brighton defy the odds and make it to Europe?
No. Or will they just miss out and pretend that they didn't want it anyway?
And can Palace finish somewhere, anywhere other than 12th?
Yes. See you next week for all of the reaction to them games.
Until then,
up the Eagles!
Seagulls!